Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you clicked on this video, chances are that you are a crochet pattern writer or an aspiring crochet pattern writer looking to boost sales and actually sell patterns. Or maybe you also really want to know how to write actual patterns. I have my laptop ready. Get a piece of paper and a pen or whatever you need to take your notes, because if I do this right, this is going to be the only video that you will have to watch about this topic. Hence the length of it. My name is Lorena. I started crocheting in 2020 and I had been doing my own designs from like 2021, 2022, which is also when I started my Instagram account, and for the first 2.5 years, basically nothing happened. I started writing crochet patterns in summer 2024, and then for the entire rest of 2024, I basically had next to no sales. So I went into 2025 with, I think, 5 crochet patterns available for purchase, around 8,000 followers, and not the most revenue. And then I ended 2025 with around 26 patterns available for purchase, 65,000 followers, and a revenue of 45,000 US dollars, which of course, that is pre-tax, pre-fees and everything. But still, for my first full year of doing crochet patterns, it was quite good, even though I did make a lot of mistakes that, again, I will try to help you stay away from. I tried to make this a little bit more digestible by splitting it up into parts. So we have the first part, which is the intro. Then we talk about mindset and how to get started. I have something about content and editing. And then, of course, pattern writing and the entire process that goes with it, and how to sell your crochet patterns. I think the most important thing is your mindset. I know this is going to sound really cheesy and like business coachy and finance bro or crypto bro like, but it is really true. I do believe that as crafters, we are often put into this box of people doing something as a side hustle and as a hobby. And as long as you have that mindset of this just being a hobby, if you want this to just be your hobby, absolutely go for it. That is amazing. But if you really want this to be a stream of income that you can rely on to pay your bills, you need to get out of that crafting and hobby box as soon as possible. Writing and selling crochet patterns is a business. It is a business that you can make money with. It is a business that will require you to work hard, maybe even harder than in other business niches, because you will have to prove that you made that jump from it being a hobby into it being an actual business. In my opinion, it is not going to be possible, and I know that's not what you want to hear, to earn money with this that pays your bills if you treat this as a hobby. So you will have to be ready to invest a lot of time before this even starts paying off. Again, for me, I had to invest so much time into learning all of this from scratch, which took me so long before I saw actual progress and profit. You will absolutely be tempted to quit or to tell yourself excuses that will stop you from making this happen, and you will have to get over it. And the only person that will get you out of there is yourself. So you need to get on track and get ready. That means looking at your schedule and seeing what sacrifices you will have to make. I work as a teacher, so for me, making it happen basically means that after a full day of teaching, I will come back home, I will work on this for 4 to 6 hours. I will have all my routines set up in a way that allows me to actually work this time and not have to kind of sacrifice. I was about to say that not to sacrifice that my apartment is constantly a mess, but I'm just looking around and it is currently a mess, but it is not always a mess. So you need systems. And something else many of you will not want to hear is that you absolutely have to be an experienced crocheter in order to write patterns that you can sell. When people buy patterns, they pay you for your expertise. So you need to bring that expertise into that entire thing. That doesn't mean that you cannot come up with your own designs and like make tutorials for them or free patterns or even really cheap patterns. But what I see happening more and more is a lot of crochet beginners starting to write patterns and pricing them immediately like an experienced designer would. And if you know me, you will know I am fully against underselling yourself. But if you are a new designer and you charge the same price as an experienced designer, what happens is people purchase your patterns that likely are not going to be the same level of detail as the patterns of a experienced designer. So one, you will have people thinking that you overcharge, they will not come back to you, and you will want repeat customers. And then also for those experienced crocheters, and I know this is going to piss some people off, it is going to be harder to sell their crochet patterns at the price that they are pricing them because people become really skeptical. I have been sent screenshots of patterns, and I will not be naming names because I forgot them. But basically, I have been sent screenshots of patterns that people have paid like $12 to $15 for that basically included no information. And that is just not okay. So you need to work on your skills before you can make money with them. That is the same in every freaking niche. Like imagine as a teacher, I would have never stepped into a classroom before I started actually teaching. That would be insane. Or a doctor performing a surgery without practicing the surgery. No. Crochet, again, comes back to crochet being a business. You need to see it as a business. You need expertise to have that business. That being said, the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to mindset is that people will have a lot to say about you. Whether it's the way you speak, the way you do your makeup, the way your hair looks, what kind of slippers you wear. And I wish I was kidding, but I once posted a YouTube video with my slippers and people were mad about my slippers. Especially YouTube, I find it to be quite brutal, which is why I'm also a little scared about this video. Especially if you speak up about things that matter to you. I would say I'm quite vocal when it comes to my views, and whenever I share those in my stories, one, I get a lot of hate from the other side, which I don't think there should be sides, but... And then also what happens if you do something that's not 100% correct in the opinion of people that share your values. They will correct you and they will be more critical of you than they would be of a person that doesn't share what they believe in. Once you start speaking up, you have to expect that people will put you on a kind of moral pedestal, if that's the word, and you will have to face the consequences if you are not 100% perfect, which obviously you cannot be. Just get ready for that. Now that you have your mindset on track, it is time to start your social media. I'm going to cover how to start your social media account to set yourself up for success. I'm going to use Instagram because that's what I have most experience from, but it is going to be very similar for TikTok as well. If you already have your social media account, you can also skip this. The video is timestamped, but I think you could also benefit from watching this just because I know a lot of people are making the mistakes that I first made when I set up my account, so maybe you can still watch it and optimize it. And you will not want to skip on having an optimized account because you will need your community to sell and your community needs to trust you and be engaged with you. And if you skip this part and immediately start selling to people when your account is not set up for success, it is not going to bring you the revenue that you want. I would advise you to take your time when setting up your account. I know it's tempting to just go for it and do it, which obviously nothing wrong with it, but I just find that your account is your portfolio. It is going to be what makes people decide if they want to follow you or if they want to swipe you away and never see you again, which is brutal. It is also what will help people make their purchase decisions. So when they are on your account, whether they're following or not, they will use your account as information base to see if they want to trust you with a purchase or not. One mistake I made when I set up my social media was definitely that I chose a very generic name and I chose a logo that I made on Canva as my profile picture. Again, if you have those things, don't beat yourself up. If you prefer that, that is also fine. Everything I share is about my own personal experience and my own personal preferences and what I found that worked for me. So if you want to keep it that logo and that name, that is fine. I started my Instagram with the name Cho Handmade, and yes, that is how you pronounce my name. My YouTube is still that name just because I focus on crochet on here anyways. The thing I will say about the name like this, if you go through your Instagram and you look at crochet pages, a lot of them are .handmade, .crochet, lowercase or whatever that symbol is called, crochet, handmade, handmade with love, crochet this, blah, 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 blah. There are so many accounts out there that have a generic logo, maybe with a yarn ball and then a name with crochet in there. Again, that is fine, but you will want to stick out of that mass. Also, if you choose .crochet as a username, and you start with crochet, but let's say 2 years into your journey, you discover that you prefer sewing over crochet, what are you going to do? So if you narrow it down too much with your name and your profile or account in general, it is going to limit you later on or make it harder to do that switch. You will want to give people a reason to follow you, and if your page or your account looks like everyone else's, there is likely not going to be a reason to follow you at first. Like, the reason that people follow you is going to be for you as a person. But if your account does not show you as a person within the first couple of seconds of someone getting onto that account, you have already lost that potential. So what I would recommend you to do is think of a name that really speaks to you, is about you, or is not as generic as the names that I just listed. And then the next thing you want to focus on is your bio. Again, a lot of people do like crochet or crocheting your dream wardrobe or whatever. Honestly, it is very up to you, but again, I would use this as an opportunity to show your personality and to help invite people to stay. So the more individual and about you can make this, the better. And then you can also focus on highlights and blah, blah, blah. I have a pinned post so people can see what my account is about. And I find this to be quite helpful. In general, I would say, think about the accounts that you like following. And when you scroll on your For You page, pay attention to what accounts really catch your attention and what accounts would make you trigger that action of hitting the follow button. So my recommendation is to keep it personal, use it as a portfolio as well with your bio, show as much personality as you can, have your face in your profile picture, and either have a really unique name or use your own name. I do have a full free framework just on this, on setting up your account and how to create an account that feels like an invitation rather than a business poster that's slapped in your face. If that makes sense, feel free to check it out. I linked it in the description. And again, even if you already have your account, you might want to go through it to see what you could optimize. First of all, what we hear often is content needs to be engaging. But what I found is no one actually explains what engaging content is. So content that is engaging is typically what makes people engage with it. And that's just as simple as it sounds. If people fully watch your video, so if the retention rate is high, so people actually watch your video from start to finish, or if people comment a lot, they save it, they share it, maybe even repost it, or in the best case, it converts to followers or even sales, that is engaging content. So let's cover this in a little bit more depth. First of all, if your main goal is to sell, I have to disappoint you immediately because we are going to put this on the side for now. Because again, you need an engaged community before you can even think about selling, or else you're going to post about your product, engagement is going to be low, your community is not warmed up to be ready to purchase yet, and you are going to have that piece of content going to waste. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's just how I put things. I wish I could hold your hand, but I can't. Your first goal and priority when posting with the intention to sell things later on must be community growth. And that does not mean necessarily follower growth. Like, it shouldn't be your top one priority to grow your followers. Your top priority must be to engage with the people that you already have on your account. Because if people come to your account and they will see that it is absolutely like the Sahara Desert and nothing is happening, they will not follow. So try to post things that are interesting for people to see, and that is not going to be 7 trial reels posted a day. It is also not that you have to post 3 times a day, and it is not going to be the 6 to 7 seconds video that you will see go viral. Yes, you can post those, but what I see happening is a lot of people will start posting and they will just copy what other people like kind of posted, and that is not going to work for them, because the other people that posted this content, they already had their community, which boosted it to the level that it was. If all you post is like 3 to 6 second videos where you cannot hear your voice, or flat lays of your product, or carousels with no context or whatever, that is not going to be what your community will want to see at first. Like, you need to make them care about you at first. It is absolutely fine to post those things, but you definitely need to look into things and content formats that are engaging and build a community, such as hot takes, or taking people along with you on a project, or asking them things, making them feel something and making them relate to you as a person and get invested into what you make and what you do. And I didn't want to hear this at first. I tried to go without it. 2.5 years, nothing happened. You will have to show your face, and people will need to hear your voice. I tried to not show my face because I was a teacher and I didn't want people to see my account. I also didn't want to speak to the camera for the longest time. So if you are scared to do that, try voiceovers. It's a little less awkward than talking to the camera. Yeah, just give people a chance to connect with you as a person and then go from there. You also need to be aware of what kind of signals that those posts are sending to your audience. If you follow a person and they are constantly posting things that make it obvious that they want to generate followers, but they are not posting things that are interesting to you, how does that make you feel? Very likely that is going to leave you feeling irrelevant, and that is absolutely what you want to avoid. You don't want your followers to feel irrelevant. You want them to feel relevant and engaged. You will also want to engage with people under comments. Like, I see so many fresh accounts that they post something, people are asking questions in the comment, and they are just not replying. And to me, that is like, you cannot say that you want to grow a community on social media and then everything that requires community building or that will build a community, you simply don't do. That does not work. Post stories, engage your community, post polls, ask them questions, and please reply to their DMs, reply to their story replies, and reply to their comments. That is bare minimum. And I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but people tend to forget. And what goes hand in hand with what I just said about the different content types. So if you use the framework that's free that I shared in the beginning, you will see that it has you pick content pillars. Obviously, we are in the crochet niche, but what happens is that if you look at social media, it is a tool that should allow you to long-term do this sustainably, to make sales and live from it. And if you focus on crochet too much, you will only attract people that care about crochet. And since crocheting wearables especially takes a freaking long time, you will burn out. What you need is having systems in place and strategies in place that allow you to post engaging things that are crochet related, but not necessarily a crochet video that features the project from start to finish and the result. So really, social media is about optimizing things to work in your favor and not just mindlessly posting what you see other people post, because that is a long-term probably not going to work for you. I would say to come up with a plan that matches where you are in your journey and then post strategically to get from one bracket to the next bracket and make progress. And once you have posted a couple of those formats, another thing I find helpful is, but only if you have posted a couple of things already, because don't focus on that as a beginner, get how those posts actually performed. And I promise it is going to help you understand what you need to post for your goals. Now that I have done this for quite some time, I can immediately say, okay, I want to sell. I can select from this type of post. Or if I want to grow, if I want a video, like I'm seeing, oh, my followers are like kind of stagnant for a while, my follower count, I want to post a video that grows my community. I will immediately know what type of video I will have to post. Or if I know I want to connect with my audience, I know, okay, I'll choose from these types of videos. And that is going to be super, super helpful. It feels overwhelming, but once you do it regularly, I promise you will see what content like gives you a spike in engagement and in followers, and then you do that more. That's the calculation. But don't just do that. You need to like have a good balance between growth and community and selling. And that is crucial. That has already been a lot of information. And I know you're already wondering, but how will I have time for all of that? Because I remember as a beginner, it would take me like legit a full day to create one video. And then I had that video, but then I needed like 2 more because I recommend posting like 3 times a week. And I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I was constantly running behind. So what I really, really, really recommend is that you come up with a way that you can structure your content days to help you produce more than just one video, and to learn how to diversify your content and repurpose your content so you can use one piece of footage that you recorded and use it for multiple pieces of content. And that requires you to have a plan and a schedule. You will have to know exactly what footage you need. You will absolutely have to know what you want it for and what you need it for. And as soon as you have that established, it will be a lot easier to actually take the content and have content ready whenever you need to make a quick piece of content. Because not every piece of content you post needs to be super revolutionary and everything. That is just not how it is. So now that I do know what I want to post, when I want to post it, and what footage I need for that, I can realistically, and I'm not kidding you, I will be able to record 2 to 3 long-form talking videos in one day. And then also in that one day, I will be able to record 3 to 5 shorter videos. So I will have one content day that has me set for 2 weeks. And then obviously I need to set a structure in place on how I will edit those. But you will need to learn that, or else you are going to burn out. And when it comes to that editing, I would say focus on the basics. Like, we already have so much to focus on. Do we really need the sickest of all edits? No. It helps if you build a repertoire of basic edits. So for example, what I like to do is cut on beat when I have a video with a trending sound. I like overlays. I like text over videos and like smaller text animations, sound effects, all the basics. And if you have those down, that's like 90% of your content, or I would say 99%. If you go to my account, you will still see like 99% of my content is using very basic editing skills. And yes, I'm saying basic, and it took me like 5 hours to learn each of them. But once you have them, you are good to go. So focus on one thing you want to learn every week. Set a goal like this week I want to use sound effects in my videos, and then you practice that, and that is your video. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to use all your editing skills in one video. Because again, you need to set this up in a way that is sustainable. And if you have the expectation of every freaking video being mind-blowing and super groundbreaking and everything, you will absolutely lose your shit. So let me summarize. First of all, you need to learn about what engaging content is. And instead of copying people, you will have to learn about the different types of content to really grow, nurture, and ultimately sell later on. And once you have a good repertoire of those different types of content, you will also be able to do your editing a lot quicker. Focus on the basics when it comes to editing. Make sure to organize yourself in a way that allows you to optimize your recording days and your content days in a way that helps you not burn out and get the most out of one day. Consistently focus on engagement and focus on community before everything, and come up with a strategy that matches where you are in your journey. And I hope I'm still recording because my storage is running low. Unless you are the most creative person that has ever walked on earth, you will need some spark of inspiration to start your stuff and your designs. And I usually find mine on Pinterest or even Instagram. But let me just tell you, please do not use other crochet artists' work as inspiration. I see this happening a lot. And obviously, I'm not talking about techniques. Like, obviously, if you are making a raglan is a raglan construction that is going to look very, very similar no matter who does it, just because that is the construction. But I'm talking about specific designs and specific pieces. What happens is a lot of people will use other crocheters' work as inspiration for their own work, which makes everything look very, very similar. And how I like to avoid that is by using things as inspiration that are not from the crochet bubble. So I'll go on Pinterest and I'll look at things that are not necessarily crochet. And I will save the occasional crochet design on my Pinterest board. If you go onto my Pinterest, you will see that a lot of things that I have saved are from like the knitting corner or just regular clothing that you will see online that I will save. I will save everything that inspires me. Like, I think I even have saved curtains and color combos or tableware, whatever I think is inspiring to me. I will save that on Pinterest and on Instagram. But since selling crochet patterns is my business and I kind of depend on people actually wanting to buy what I make, I will do market research before I pick a design. I will also look at my wardrobe and see what's missing. The jumper I'm wearing here is actually just something I really wanted to have. It is a very basic design, but it was missing in my wardrobe. And if something is missing in your wardrobe and you are going to actually wear that piece once you make it, chances are it is missing in other people's wardrobe too. So that is a good indicator of a design that you really want to make. This usually leads to me having multiple ideas again. So for those things that I know I will want to make for the season, I will create separate boards that I will save privately on my folders just so I can have them ready once I finish the design I'm working on first and then go to the next one. Obviously, as creative people, sometimes we also just like to create. I also leave space for that. So when I focus on things that people want to make, that allows me to have the freedom to, from time to time, also make things that I know are not going to be bestsellers, but are really, really filling me with joy. And I know will find their people, but they're just not going to bring in thousands and thousands of revenue, and that is fine. So I make my sketches, and when I decided on a design, I will make detailed sketches where I think about the entire construction of a piece. So I will look at what seams will there be. Will I work in parts? Will I work bottom up or top down? Will everything be made in one piece? What method am I going to use? And I think it's kind of like a sewing pattern. If you have ever worked with one, those are like different parts that you will cut out. And I try to imagine it as you're making a sewing pattern, but you are creating the fabric that you use. And I sketch this down, and I also think about the measurements that I want this to have. I make my pieces made to measure, and I really prefer it that way. And if you don't have a set preference yet, I would recommend you to do it that way as well. It takes a little bit of figuring out, but I just think you can make your patterns be more size inclusive with made to measure. If you think about your personal experience, like for example, I'm pear-shaped. So when I go to stores and I buy or try to buy the pieces that they have with like graded sizes, a lot of times something will be too tight in one area, for example the butt, and then too loose around the waist. And if you have graded sizes or set stitch counts for the patterns that you create, possibilities are that this is going to be the experience of people that purchase your pattern that don't have the same body type as you. So all those things I try to consider when I make my mock-up before I even start crocheting. I like to think how I can adapt this to different body types so it really fits people. And this goes back to what we said about you being an expert and people paying you for your expertise. For cheaper patterns, I think you can leave some figuring out to the customer. But if you are trying to get into the premium pattern segment, which is ridiculous to say for something that still is like $15 max, you really need to provide that information and do your best to do so. Will it be perfect for everyone? Not really, maybe, but you need to at least try. And then when you have that, you make your mock-up. And I try to make this in a color that already fits my brand. Like I am selling a vision later on. We'll talk about that in the sales part. But I want people to look at the piece as a blank canvas and really picture themselves wearing it, even though they are not buying the actual piece. So for example, my brand is really clean and white, obviously, and neutral colors. If I were to make a design in rainbow colors and I would promote it, people would, like, it's hard to see past rainbow colors. If that is your brand and your aesthetic and your target audience, go for the rainbows. But if you prefer more simple designs and you know your target audience prefers simple designs, I think that is something to take into consideration when you make your mock-up, because your mock-up is already a marketing opportunity that you can use later on. While you make that mock-up, I recommend you to already document that as much as possible, not just for content, but for your reference whenever you need to go back to it to look at what you did. This can be videos, this can be pictures. They don't have to be the best quality, they just need to help you remember what you did. And you need to write everything down. If you do this process very thoroughly, you will save so much time when writing the actual pattern. Once you have that mock-up, you need to absolutely wear it for at least a day. I would actually recommend wearing it multiple times just for you to see if the piece actually looks like you wanted it to when you wear it. And if it doesn't, you need to go back to the drawing board and change it. For example, the design I'm working on right now, I had to redo it so many times and I rushed myself, which is why I have this, because I just couldn't get it right. And I fully believe I could have used the second version that I had if I wouldn't care about how things behave with wear and how they are behaving with other body types. But I have a lot of repeat customers and I want them to return. So if I put something out that I am not fully convinced of, I'm risking that loyal customer base and it is simply not worth it. So you need to give it your all and your best. And if that means redoing the piece 5 times, so be it. If you want that premium price segment, if you are like starting out and wanting to get started with crochet patterns and all that stuff, it doesn't have to be perfect. But if you really are looking to do this seriously, you need to take it seriously. And then the actual pattern starts with your introduction pages. So you need to give people, like, you need to set the scene or set the picture of what people are going to make. You need to remember that those are people that maybe look at the pattern after a long day of work, and things that are clear to you are not necessarily clear to them. People have different skill levels, and even if you label a pattern to be intermediate, the occasional advanced beginner that is almost an intermediate, like in between the stages, they will purchase it because they overestimate themselves. And if you do not take that into account and try to like give them a little safety net with your introduction pages and your instructions, you are losing those, because they are not going to say, oh, that was too hard for me. They are going to say, oh, that pattern was not written well. And that is a risk you are taking if you are skipping on the details in your instructions. So when you come to the actual instructions, I recommend turning this into multiple parts or like multiple steps and break them down step by step. Use as many pictures as you can. maybe even link videos. The way I do this is I just upload them to YouTube and put them as unlisted, so I can copy the link and only the people that have the links can watch them. You can also upload them to Google Drive, I believe, and then link them the same way in your patterns. So you kind of need to think of it like, if you were to give this pattern to a person that massively overestimated their skill level, are they able to complete it, yes or no? And if the answer is no, you need to ask yourself what type of information is missing so that they could complete it. And yes, as I said, this depends on what type of patterns that you want to sell. I know there's like this outrage of different crochet creators that think it's like a literacy crisis, or I don't know what the word in English is, but basically they were saying that people are too lazy to read and blah, 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 and art is getting lost. And as a teacher, I know reading competence is not something everyone has, but as a designer, I know, and as a former crochet pattern user, I know sometimes you just want to sit down and use a pattern and shut your brain off. And if instructions don't include all the steps and you have to do more of the thinking, it's not as enjoyable. So you can choose to be mad about having to include detailed information and then have happy customers, or you can choose not to and then have people be confused and frustrated. For me, it's very clear what I want to pick, and I do think that me giving this level of detail allows me to set the prices that I think my patterns are worth. So if you want to make detailed patterns and sell them for the prices that other people sell their detailed patterns for, if you have a pattern that is 5 pages for a wearable, that is not enough. And then once you have that pattern, I like to split mine into 2 parts for testing, just to make sure that people don't sign up to just get a free pattern. Like, I make sure that everyone knows they will get one part of the pattern, and only when they complete the first part, I will send over the next part. And I found this helped really with people signing up and then just ghosting me. And I will do that typically before I do my tester application. And then the tester application, I do that on Google Forms. I create a little forum with questions like their username, so their Instagram, their email, their size, their skill level, whatever, just so I can get an idea of who they are as a crocheter and if I do think that they would be suitable as a tester. I post my application into my stories or my broadcast channel, but I know you can also post it as a post and then have the link in your highlights or your stories. I know that's a luxury problem, but I get way too many applications if I post it as a really like a feed post or a reel. That is why I use my stories. What I also do before I even start the testing is that I will create 2 Google Forms for feedback to the according parts that I will send out with the parts. Let me remind you that testing is for that exactly. Testing is for you to get the feedback on different sizing and on everything. So you need to make sure that your focus absolutely is on that feedback and not on getting pictures or videos to use for your marketing. Yes, it can help. Yes, it's amazing. But I see a lot of people and crochet designers, and sometimes even bigger ones, they have a testing time frame of 2 weeks for all sizes. Like for a small backless crop top, I think for size extra small, you can give 2 weeks. But if you give 2 weeks for a size 2XL, that is not going to be possible for them to complete the piece and give you detailed feedback. It is an opportunity to perfect your product and make sure it is inclusive. When I go through my applications, I try to make sure that I pick enough testers for each size, because life happens, people ghost, or they have something happening in their personal life which keeps them from finishing the test. So you need to have enough testers per size, but you also need to make sure that you manage the test correctly. Then I update the pattern with the feedback that I get in the end. I include the tester galleries. I like to include one with smaller pictures and one with like more details about their sizing. Now that we have your pattern, it is time for the fun part, which is marketing and selling your patterns. If you did all those steps, that was a lot of work already, and I hope you are proud. And it would be such a shame if you now let this not go to waste, because nothing is ever wasted, but if you wouldn't get the revenue that this pattern deserves. So let's look at your marketing and your sales strategy. If you are already familiar with different kinds of content and have worked with that before and have your community warmed up, meaning that they know that you care about them, they trust you, and they are ready to see what you actually have to offer, selling really isn't that difficult, but it is not what most people think. So what I see often is that people, they just post their things. Like they will post them wearing the design, or like a 6 to 7 second video, or like a transformation video, and they think that this is going to do the job. And sometimes that is enough already for some sales. Like if people know you already, they are maybe a repeat buyer, they trust you, they really like the design, that can be enough. But for most people, they have an active purchase decision that they will make. And that is a process. So your marketing shouldn't just be your pattern and then you slap it into the people's faces. It should be intentional. It should be you thinking, okay, what would make me actually purchase this? And that is very often people will just use the skill level. And while that is an important information to use, it is not everything that you will have to use. This is also where your market research that you did before you even started designing will come into play. And as you can see, everything is connected. Like we are trying to sell, we are using what you used in pattern writing, and we are also using what you learned in the content part. Everything is connected, nothing is separate from each other. So you need to be really clear about what you think makes your pattern amazing. And if you don't think it is amazing, that is a problem. Like you need to be convinced of your product. And if you aren't, that likely means that you will have to go back to the drawing board and change something about it until you think it actually is amazing. And once you have that in mind, you will have to choose where you want to sell your patterns. So obviously, we all know there are marketplaces like Etsy or Ravelry or whatever all the others are, and your own website. I use Shopify for mine. If you are starting out, I can recommend Etsy just because the setup time and cost is very low. Like you can get started in a weekend or so, although it glitches a lot and I find it takes a lot of patience. But having your own website is usually tied to a lot of setup time that you have to invest, and also some costs that you will have to cover. I personally use both Etsy and my own website just because if I already make the patterns, why do I not just upload them to both channels? And then on Etsy, I don't promote my Etsy at all, but I get a bit of traffic some months and I can use that to bump up my revenue, and that's that. Then for the pricing, as we discussed, you need to stop just copying what other designers do. Yes, you might see a designer charge $12 for a pattern, but you cannot see actually into that pattern. Especially if you are starting out, I would recommend you to not undersell yourself, but take that into consideration that your product quality might not be what it is going to be in 6 months or even like 3 months in time. You need to test the water first, and then you can factor in how long it took you to make the design, how long it took you to write the pattern, how many options people have when they use the pattern, and so on and so forth. And then when it comes to selling with your content, you have to learn about what content actually sells. So we already talked about the different types of content, and I already told you to nurture your community and warm them up. And that means having a structure and a system in place to post about your releases in a way that doesn't feel like all up in their face at first. And what I see a lot of pattern designers do is they will have a design and then they will either post everything way before the release and have no content left about the design when the release is happening, or the opposite, they will absolutely not talk about the design at all, and then they will post everything at once, so people kind of feel suffocated about it. Like, you are actively selling and there is no shame in that. Like, you do not have to be embarrassed about it, and if your pattern is actually what people will want to make, they like being sold to. Like, I like seeing the lip gloss that I think I need. I like seeing the bag that I think will fit all my crochet projects. If it is something I want, I like seeing things that tell me, oh, I think you need it and here is why you need it, because it helps me make that decision. So marketing is not about just showing your piece repeatedly without any information. It is also not about posting the same thing and same content type all the time and hope that just seeing the project will make people want to purchase it, because very often that is not enough. I like to choose between different release approaches. So by approach, I mean when I start posting about a design or what kind of series or content I included before the release, just to keep things interested and not as obvious. You kind of need to understand that if you don't fully focus on marketing, it is not a waste. Like, you have an amazing crochet pattern and you will learn how to promote it maybe later on. But what happens is you will have a small spike in release. Like, you will have nothing, then some sales and then nothing. But what you want is you want to build up anticipation to get a big spike in revenue. And once you're at the top of your revenue, you don't want to go all the way down to the bottom again immediately. You want to keep the sales as consistent as possible so you can actually get a lot of revenue from one design. And of course, you need to have a pattern library to do that. But I can guarantee you, even with a pattern library, like last summer and fall, I had a big pattern library already. But because I didn't use what I learned now, I didn't have a constant stream of income. Like, I would only have an income when I released something. And then when I released something and I didn't have that big spike, I had no money. And that was not good. So now that I understood how I can use my content to sell the things that I already have in my library, I have like a steady curve that is spiking even more with a release that I have. And then I can use that to save up, because we also need to talk about the financial aspect of things. You need to have safety systems set up. You need to have your savings. You need resources if all goes wrong. Trust me, I've been there. I learned the hard way. You need to financially prepare yourself. And if you can do that with your content, why not do it? My storage was full, my phone was not recording, and I only realized when I was editing this video. It is currently a couple of days later, obviously. I know this video probably felt like a lot, and if you are sitting here and feel overwhelmed, that is normal, and I'm really sorry. I just knew I wanted to have a video that would focus on the entire thing and not on just one aspect, so people could sit here and truly learn what they have to do. So if you did find any of this helpful, it would actually help me a lot if you could like this video or maybe even leave a comment so other crochet pattern designers can discover it as well. And I do think, to finish this off, the biggest advice I can give you is to really focus on the systems and plans that you have, because you want to streamline all the steps that I just talked about in a way that you can really make the most out of your time. It did take me a while to come up with a system and a strategy for myself that worked for me, and that would help me avoid the mistakes that I talked about in this video and allow me to consistently have revenue. And if you are curious to hear more about my strategy and the system that I use for my business, I actually put this all into one resource. I named it the Business Blueprint, and it is exactly what the name says. It is the blueprint to my business. It includes everything I found out, all my research, all my case studies, all the templates that I created for myself, all the planners that I created for myself, my entire pattern writing structure, everything. I did link this in the description for anyone that wants to check this out. And again, let me be very, very clear. This is not a how to get rich with crochet patterns resource. I personally do not believe that there is such a thing as, oh, you just need this one thing or this simple switch to turn your crochet business into a six-figure business. I just wanted to make this very, very clear, because people are getting way too comfortable with lying on here. Like, I've been seeing some wild shit. Yeah, I think you can really tell I like efficiency. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you so much for being here and for your continuous support. I wish you nothing but success, and remember that there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be successful with what you do. It will require work, it will require sacrifices, but eventually you will get there.